Welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Wins Webby interview series. I'm Amie Sheridan, host and founder of Wins Media. The mission of this series is to elevate the visibility of women in sports and entertainment by creating a connected environment for authentic storytelling. Thank you for joining us as we interview influential leaders across sports, entertainment, and beyond. Today, I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Kendall Tyson. Kendall is the VP of Strategy and Business Intelligence for the Seattle Kraken, the new NHL team. I think everyone's excited for this team. So, this is going to be a great conversation. Kendall's career in sports began early on as a ball girl for the Minnesota Lynx. From there, her journey took a few turns from Accenture to Yale for her MBA, which is amazing, to the LPGA and Topgolf. She developed her skill set in data analytics and business management. And in her current role with the Kraken, she manages the CRM and data systems, develops financial and operational models, leads cross-functional teams, tackling strategic initiatives. She is also a mom, which is amazing. And I'm going to point that out. You deserve claps for that. And for being here at 7:30 as a mom of a young daughter. So thank you so much for joining me today, Kendall. I'm really excited to have you.
Excited to chat.
Okay, so we're going to dive right in. And to start off, I just want to get to know you a little bit more. So we've had a conversation before. I know a little bit about you, but I'd love for you to share the story of your journey into the sports and entertainment business.
Yeah, so, kind of as you mentioned, I've been a sports fan, most of my life, and a fan as well as a participant. So I played soccer, basketball, and lacrosse in high school, went on to play basketball in college. So I've always been around the industry. My dad also works in the sports industry, just on the medical side, as an orthopedic surgeon and a team physician for several of the teams in Minnesota as we were growing up. So I was kind of around the game quite a bit, but didn't really see myself in it as a career. I went to school to be an engineer, kind of fell in love with the consulting industry, and really thought, that at 22, it's like, this is going to be my life, long career. This will be my lifelong journey, and really, truly enjoyed it. But, I think by, kind of got to around year 4 and started kind of thinking about, well, maybe not. Maybe there's other things out there that I haven't explored that I'd be interested in. And so that's what led me to business school. It was really an opportunity to explore. And while I was there, I really kind of got a chance to connect with, okay, what are my skill sets and where are my passions, and how do I combine those two in order to kind of find a new career path? And that's what led me into kind of business intelligence at sports leagues and teams and organizations. So started with time at the LPGA, then Topgolf, and now with the Kraken.
That's great. So the Yale MBA, were you working, did they set you up with these opportunities during that program with the LPGA?
Yeah. So I was full-time in their full-time program at the School of Management. And so in between your first and second year, you have an opportunity to intern over the summer. And so I really I decided that I wanted to make this transition into sports and knew the importance of having that kind of internship in sports on my resume. And so I really just kind of like stalked every sports job board, every organization. I had this long list of companies that I would want to work for within the industry, and pretty much all spring, kind of knowing that sports hiring on the intern side tends to happen, closer to the summertime. And so I just kind of kept my eye out on all these organization job boards and started applying and applied to an opportunity with the LPGA and worked on their partnerships team from an analytics standpoint, as well as working with their CFO on their 4-year strategic plan at the time.
That's amazing. So it sounds like that experience at Yale, opened up a lot of doors for you, but also the light bulb sort of, was going on for you with regard to, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? I love the story about stalking the job boards. I think anyone in this business who at one time was not in this business has done that. I can remember doing that myself early on in my career, like every single day. I'd be logging on looking to see if there was anything new. So that's funny. Okay. And so as you've moved through your career, I noted in your LinkedIn profile, you mention that you are passionate about transforming experiences for sports fans and athletes and sponsors and sort of the whole ecosystem of sports and entertainment. Where have you found your passion points in this business?
Yeah, I think I've found my passion points in combining data and using data to really transform those experiences. And, data so amazingly comes in such a variety of different ways. I think, historically, most people thought of there's financial data, right? So your teams and organizations were really focused on, okay, we just have to sell the tickets, just sell tickets, right? And it was how many seats, how many people are coming through the door? What was the attendance number, right? That was kind of the benchmarks of achievement from a data perspective. And now, with the rise of, digital content and e-commerce, so much has been proven as to, it's more than just the transaction itself. And there's significant value in knowing information about the people and about your fans, about who buys your product, about who's coming in your door, not only so that you could sell them more in the future, but also so that you can know them and provide them unique experiences. And so to me, that's really where I've kind of seen my passions kind of come together, is really just creating these really special and awesome experiences that I see in my life and other industries, right? Whether it's my experiences of, watching digital content on Netflix, right? And it's like, oh, I recommend this show. I'm like, great. I think I'm going to love this show, right? All the way, to shopping online, right? You leave your cart and your cart, it gives you the little reminder that says, hey, your cart was empty, right? But not only that, hey, you bought shoes, do you want to customize the laces? I wasn't thinking about customizing the laces before, but yeah, this seems like a kind of fun and neat experience. And so how do we kind of bring those kind of fun and cool aspects of how other industries are using data into sports and entertainment to provide those same awesome experiences for our fans?
Awesome. Yeah, I took a lot of notes here. I don't even know why. Sometimes I'm taking notes. That's just who I am. I'm writing it down. So you said a lot of stuff there that really resonates with me. And, going from the traditional mindset about data in the business, sort of outside of the Moneyball performance on the field aspect, we're talking about the business aspect of data. And the focus it was on tickets, it was on butts and seats, it was about attendance and revenue. And so you're saying that now it's about personalizing that experience, right? And also what I liked from what you said was taking what other industries are doing, and bringing it into sports and entertainment. That's definitely a theme that we see, kind of bringing the trends from the other industries that in some cases are a bit further along when we talk about leveraging data for, decision making. So that really resonated with me. And just a follow-up question for you, if you're able to share, what are some of the tools that you use to analyze data in your role?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is, there's kind of going back to what other industries are doing, a lot of this does require a pretty sophisticated infrastructure. It's not an unattainable infrastructure, but it does have to be intentional, right? And so from a historical perspective, data tends to be in in not just the sports entertainment industry, but others as well, but quite siloed. So your ticketing system is, running ticket sales and sales. Your, marketing system or any information you're collecting on whether it's e-commerce or traffic on the website tends to be siloed in marketing. Donors, venues, food and beverage, all that stuff tends to be, in their respective systems within their respective departments. And what you kind of see is in order for you to really understand and know your fan, you have to understand them across all of those different areas. And to do that, you really kind of need to combine those systems. And so what you're seeing is kind of this rise of the data warehouse, right? And everyone's talking about, we need a data warehouse. And it's true, like you do need a data warehouse, but if your intent is just to like dump data in the data warehouse, you're going to still kind of end up in the same spot. And so what actually has to happen is you have to create kind of this fan 360 view of your fans, where you have an individual and you are tying the information about them back to that individual. So no matter how they interact with you, you are capturing that information and linking it, back to that person. The tools to do that, you do need, a data warehouse is definitely important. But nicely, a lot of the other stuff is pretty traditional in sports. Like you need a CRM, you have a ticketing system, right? From an F&B and retail perspective, you have POS systems already in place. The biggest hurdle there is how do you link a food and beverage transaction to an individual? And a lot of POS systems and companies are working on that right now with integrations between the POS systems and the ticketing system that would allow somebody to, scan their ticket basically, and you could pass a unique identifier from the ticket over to the POS system, kind of linking that person to the transaction. And lots of POS systems are working with Ticketmaster and others, on those types of integrations. And then the other side of it is really an ability to take information now that you have this kind of unified customer record. How do you get it out to the systems that the fans see, right? How do you create those personalized experiences? And a lot of that, tends to happen through things like an API gateway, or there's systems out there that will actually look into a data warehouse for you and create those personalized experiences. So there's lots out there. It is certainly a transition and a shift, but I think it's one that eventually all teams and organizations will have to do.
Right. So it's very clear that you are right on the cutting edge of what's going on with this sort of marriage of all systems in sports and entertainment. So I'd love to check back in with you in a couple of years and kind of see where it's at. And, if this business, it's sort of like one team does something and the others follow suit. So it'll be interesting to see if you guys end up being a bit of a leader in this space.
Yeah, well, hopefully in 5-10 years, we're on to something else. I think back, 5 years ago to, 10 years ago just seems like way too far back, right, from a technology perspective. But even 5 years ago, right, like so much of the stuff that I mentioned, just it wasn't happening, right? And the progression of technology is just so fast that the biggest piece is whatever you build has to be flexible, right? You've got to be working with open source data, and you have to have control of it because it's not going to stay static, right? It's continuously changing. And I'm sure in 5 years, we'll be kind of on to something else that, whether it's, AI or VR or AR, right? And we're talking about, how do we store even bigger data files? And how do you kind of manage that? So who knows where we'll be, but hopefully we'll be kind of set up to succeed in that new era of technology.
It sounds like you will. So zooming out for a second, and,
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear, so when we first spoke, you told me a really cool story about how you actually ended up getting the job with the Kraken, right?
Oh yeah.
And you didn't mention that you played hockey in the beginning of the intro. And I remember we had kind of a funny exchange about, oh, I'm from Minnesota and playing hockey is kind of like running, right? But would you share the story about how you found your way into the role that you're in now with the Seattle Kraken?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, did grow up in Minnesota. I don't know if playing hockey is like running, but certainly skating is. Like when I went to school in Atlanta, I was surprised when people were like, oh, I don't know how to ice skate. It's like, I thought that was like a normal gym class activity, but apparently it's not. But did play, a lot of kind of just hockey in the streets or in our garage. My brothers and I grew up playing the game and around the game. And that's really kind of how this story starts is I was here in Seattle working for Topgolf, in the sports and entertainment industry. My brother, one of two brothers, Kyle, he had moved here to Seattle. He was a teacher at Lakeside. And he has been a hockey player, his whole life. Played a lot of organized hockey growing up, played club hockey in college, continues to be involved in the game. And so he was looking to go skating and went to an open skate at a rink down in Renton, Washington. And while he was there, he was kind of, skating around, had his headphones in, and this guy came up to him and said, hey, you're a really good skater, and there's some interesting ties there. One, he is actually a very good skater, but also as an African-American male, it really kind of stands out as like, wow, this guy's a really good skater and he's an African-American male. Like, I want to talk to this guy. So he talks to him. My brother have a great conversation. The guy says, no, I used to work for the Minnesota Wild. My brother said, oh yeah, my dad works for the Minnesota Wild. So he ends up texting my dad and says, hey, this guy, Todd, says hi, right? And so my dad's like, Todd. So he's like, oh, no way. So he calls him and said, yeah, I was at the skating rink. I met this guy, Todd. And my dad's like, and so my brother sends him a picture. He said, we took a picture. So my brother sends him the picture and it's Todd Lewicki, right? And my dad is like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you met Todd Lewicki? Like, what do you do? Like, go back, say hi. My brother is just the cool guy. He's like, I'm just trying to skate. Like, what? So he goes back and, hands my dad the phone and, they chat and catch up. And my dad says, oh, I met you. He said, I met your son. And he's like, oh, it's great. He's like, yeah, but, actually, it's, my daughter who works, in sports and entertainment. And so my brother very nicely, came on a coffee date with myself and Todd, and we met at a Starbucks specifically. And we had coffee, and really it was I was the one who was like, super nervous and, like, oh my gosh, this is, my one shot to get in with the team. And my brother's like, oh, I'm a teacher. Like, I'm just here because I'm just here for the ride. But the amazing thing about Todd is like when he sees potential and people's passion and energy, he wants them on the team because he knows that there's something there for everyone in a way to contribute, whether you've been in the sports industry your whole life or you've never worked a day in sports. And he got both of us. He pitched to my brother on, a role of how to, grow hockey in the Seattle and Pacific Northwest, his experience as a teacher and as a coach, as a former player, particularly, as a minority and, Todd recognizing the importance of, to really grow this game in a way like hockey does have to be for everyone, and to have somebody at the forefront of the community initiatives that look like the people we're trying to attract, that all, he saw that importance and convinced my brother that he was the right person for the job. And then on my side, talked a lot about many of the things that I had just mentioned and the importance of data and analyzing that data and information to make decisions. And so I joined in May of 2019 and Kyle joined that fall. So It was an exciting time.
I didn't know that your brother was also hired.
Oh yeah.
That is an incredible story. So wait, did he leave his teaching job or does he still have that?
So he finished out his teaching job. So he taught through the end of the school year, and then he taught over the summer as well. And so that's why he started sometime around October, November of 2019.
Wow. Amazing. That was a really great story. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now you're at the Kraken and you are now in the seat of you are launching a new team, which is a huge
Mm-hmm.
undertaking. And I talked to other people in this business and they're like, it sounds like it wouldn't be stressful, but it's actually so stressful when you're bringing a team to a new city. Um, and you're also introducing a new venue to the city. And we could do an entire interview about the venue. I know Jess David has some questions for you specifically about the venue and the naming of the venue and that process. But
Sure.
talk to me about, not only how it is from your point of view, launching a new NHL team in a new city, launching a new venue, but also proving your value quickly in this fast moving business of sports and entertainment. How has that been for you?
Yeah. So, when I started, I think I was employee number 26. It was a small startup and very much a startup. And everybody had their hands in a lot of things because even what's coming up on 3 years ago, we had a lot to do. And everyone kind of had it, was in it, right? You're working. If you're trying to, sell deposits, you're trying to do conversion, you're trying to price the building, you're trying to, all these different things. And so that was, I think, one of the areas in terms of like proving value. You didn't have a chance to just like sit back, like, because all hands were truly on deck, right? It's not like we came out and had 200, 150 people on staff to like tackle all the stuff that we needed to get done. We were really strategic in the ramp up, but in that strategic ramp up, it meant that people who were there early were very, very busy. And so I don't think it was too much of a, me personally having to any challenges of proving value because so much of what we were doing, everybody was there who was there and still is here is here for a reason. Like you have a job, and if you don't do your job, we won't make it, to puck drop. And so I think that piece has been, quite seamless. In terms of proving ourselves, what's interesting I find is we really had to prove ourselves in the Pacific Northwest. Like when I first started saying like, oh, I work for the hockey team, people were like, a hockey team? Like, in Seattle, like I don't know anybody who plays hockey in Seattle. So I think, and to be fair, like the Seahawks are king around, if you walk in through Seattle, we have Blue Friday, right? It's a whole day dedicated to the Seahawks, right? And obviously people show their fandom, for other teams. And that's another, a nice thing and a really cool thing about Seattle and Seattle fans is they're very ride or die for Seattle. Like no matter what team kind of comes in here, we could be talking about a rugby team, which we have. We could be talking about women's soccer. We have women's basketball. Like people are all about the team and representing Seattle. So I think we had more to prove to the fans here in the Pacific Northwest more than anything. And especially, with the name and the brand, right? Like there was a lot that kind of comes with that Seattle pride is being able to like see the logo and like feel the brand and like connect with it. And so that I think is where we had the most to prove and where I think we did a fantastic job. I think people in the Pacific Northwest, they love it. They get it. It was great. I think it was Mike Wilbon, we released the name and he was kind of like, oh, I don't get it, a Kraken. And it was one of those where we were like, it's not for you, like this is for people here. And they're happy about it. We're happy about it.
That's great. Yeah. So the name I think is awesome. I had a conversation a couple days ago, like, what is a Kraken, right? So we know it's like this octopus squid thing, right? But we kind of Googled it and went down the path of looking at what it actually is. But it's a mythical creature, right? And
Mhm.
then, uh, you know, can you talk for a second about the naming of the arena and perhaps what that means to Seattle and how that came to be?
Yeah, I didn't grow up in Seattle. Grew up in the Midwest and then lived in Atlanta for a long period of time. And so even when I came to Seattle, the importance of climate and climate initiatives, I was blown away. It's always been on my mind and important to me, but it's next level here. And people think I'm kidding, but you will get fined for not properly recycling and composting. And like they say it's taken very, very seriously here. So I think, in so many ways, the naming of the building and the mission, it's really about the mission, right? Being the first net zero carbon building. That is really just a tribute and an honoring of the values of the fans here and the values of the Pacific Northwest more than anything. This is, and I would say, like, this is who we are. And so I don't know that it didn't surprise me. It's certainly a mission, right? This is, we're out looking for new Zambonis and new ways of doing things. But we also, I think everybody recognizes that, yeah, like this is the right thing to do. And this is in line with what our city cares about. And so this is the perfect place for it.
It really sounds like you're in an incredible place and time right now with this opportunity that you have from the story about how Todd was building really a startup and handpicking
Mm-hmm.
the team. And when you talk about being, I think it was number 26, I mean, how incredible is that to be the 26th employee of an NHL team? That sort of feels crazy. And to be there from the beginning until now and watching it sort of evolve and begin to roll it out is so exciting. So that's great. And it's really the story of the naming of the building and the way that it sort of fits into the community of Seattle and their morals. I mean, that's incredible, right? It's really incredible. And like I said, we could talk about that for an hour, but we'll move on. So, I want to wrap my question set, and I know we have at least one here coming in, but I want to wrap mine with a question about women in sports and entertainment. You know that the mission of WINS is to elevate the visibility of women. And so you are now, and you have been a woman in prominent leadership in this business. And I just want to ask, what does this mean to you? And do you intend to use this as a platform, for women? How do you see yourself in this role, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think it means to me is it's an example of representation. So I would say, I've always kind of seen and preached the value that representation matters, right? I will go back to, growing up, I played all those, different sports, but at the time, really women's basketball was outside of the Olympics, pretty much the only women's sport you could see on TV. And even then it was limited, right? You'd see, the Tennessee UConn game, might see, the Final Four games, those 3 games, including the championship. But that was kind of it, right? But they were there, right? They were on TV. And so basketball always kind of separated itself from me, even though I was actually candidly a much better lacrosse player. I was like kind of always in my head, like, no, I want to play college basketball. I want to play college basketball. And that was because that's what I saw. That's what was represented in front of me. And so when I look at, me in this position now, I think of it in the same way, right? it means that, people can look at our organization and see, oh, I could do that, or I see myself there, or I can see what she's doing and how she's carrying herself, and I can kind of follow that kind of, similar path or similar model. And there are spots, right, available for me in those positions. So I think that's how I've always, really seen it. I'm also, though, big on bringing, kind of your authentic self. I really try to, just be me. And so I think that's important too. When I talk to young women, I want to be you someday. I'm like, don't. Like, you should just be, because you have your own, way of, leading. You have your own way of carrying an organization and contributing and bringing value to an organization. Follow that, right? We are far more than just what we do in our careers. We are, women, we're good friends, right? We're good caretakers. We're bosses. Like, we run households and organizations, and we run companies, and we're entrepreneurs, in many, many senses of the world. We're innovators. We're creators, in so many ways. I think I'm like, I'm not a creator, but then it's like, we're on a hike and the backpack broke. It's like, oh, find some duct tape, do this, take some, 2 sticks, and here you go, there, carry, here's a little bowl for your snack, whatever, right? Like, so it shows up in so many ways that we don't necessarily connect, but we can do all those things, and all those things are incredibly valuable to any organization. So if you're not bringing all those things, then you're only kind of bringing that limited aspect of yourself. And so you have to bring everything. And hopefully that's the best example that I can be. Is, bring your whole self. Don't shy away from it. There's so many great aspects of each and every one of us.
Incredible. Bring your whole self, bring everything. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this before we move to questions. And I want to thank you, Kendall, so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. I have so many more questions, but we'll get back together again and we'll talk more, maybe after everything is up and running over there in Seattle. But in our next episode, we will talk to Jillian Frechette, SVP of Marketing for the New Jersey Devils. That's exciting. That's in a couple of weeks. And this interview was powered by WINS, our membership community for women influencing sports and entertainment. To learn more about us, visit us at wins.media/membership. And thank you, Kendall, and for everyone who's here today.